Hey folks, welcome to the channel. Today's video we're going to be going over the 10R80 transmission and what things are normal and are normal characteristics of the 10R80, what things you should be worried about, and some tips on how to drive the transmission, make sure it's smooth, or really goes for any transmission, but what I've noticed and in my experience of what helps make the transmission feel more smooth and better ways to drive it. So for number one that's normal is a whine. So I'm going to try to show you guys what this is, what I'm talking about here. Okay, so I'm using a Mustang for my example, and I put the exhaust in quiet so you can try to hear the transmission over the exhaust and listen when I rev it. Hear that whining noise? That whining noise is completely normal. All the Ford 10 speeds have this whine. Some cars, the whine will be louder than others, and some cars you can barely hear the whine. Like for example, in my own personal car, the whine isn't all that loud, so you can't really hear it unless you're really listening for it. But from what I've noticed in 5.0 F-150s and Mustangs, it's usually the loudest in those. To show you guys the gear skipping, I'm gonna pull out onto this street here, and you guys can watch for yourself the gears that it skips. What I've noticed is it goes 1, 3, 5, and then 6, 7, so on. 1, 3, 5, 6. And then if you kind of lighten up on the throttle, it'll go 1, 3, 4, and then 6 or 5, 6. So I'm kind of light on the throttle. 4, 5, and then 6. So skipping gears is completely normal as well. Just so you guys know, under heavy throttle, it'll go through each gear. If you put it in sport mode or some other type of mode, it'll go through each gear. Another thing that's normal is if you put it in reverse and you back up, it's really hard to hear on camera. You can't hear it, but if you hear like a little whine in reverse, that's also completely normal. Another thing that's normal is if you start the car up and the transmission is cold, so during like a cold start, you may experience a 3-5 shift, like leap, or kind of like a harsh 3-5 shift. So for example, sometimes when I leave work, I go onto the street over here, and from 3 to 5, it might do like a little leap or something if it doesn't go to fourth gear first. So that's another thing that's kind of normal, is if it's cold and it does kind of a leap between 3-5, that's completely normal. Another thing that's normal is, let's say the car is off right now and you start it up, especially during a cold start, but let's say you start it up and then immediately put it in gear. It will do a clunk into the gear, and then it'll be kind of like, it'll kind of like rev a little bit as you're like slowly moving, and then it'll finally catch onto the gear. So if you start it up when it's cold and immediately put it in gear before it has a chance to idle for a little bit, then it will do a clunk and it'll do that kind of revving thing that I'm talking about. Or some things that aren't normal is if you're having hard shifts all the time, or let's say you're coming to a stop and you have really harsh downshifts. If you feel the downshift, that's normal. You can feel it downshift a little bit, but if it's a harsh downshift or like a shove in the back, that's not normal, and you should take it into your dealer. Another thing that isn't normal, and something that I actually took into the dealer on my personal car, is if you put it in drive and it kind of clunks into the gear, it shouldn't do that. It should be a smooth engagement between drive and reverse. It should be a completely smooth engagement. It shouldn't jam into the gear. So if it does that, take it into the dealer and have them do a transmission reflash or reset. All right, now for some tips. So when you start up the car and it's cold, my suggestion is let it idle for about like 5 to 8 seconds before you put it in gear, because like I mentioned earlier, it might clunk into the gear, and it's just generally not good on the transmission to start it up and immediately put it in gear. So what I do is I start it up, and then I put on my seatbelt and everything, get everything situated, and then I put it in gear, and then it's usually smooth all the time. That's especially important on a cold start, but on any normal start, you want to just wait a couple seconds before putting it in gear. My last tip goes for pretty much any transmission, but if you're backing out of a parking space, like let's say you're backing up and then put it back in drive, come to a complete stop, put it in drive, let drive engage, and then step on the gas. Don't put it in drive and then immediately step on the gas for drive is fully engaged, because that's just not good for the transmission, and it might be kind of clunky if you do that. Same goes for reverse. Like let's say you're making like a 3-point turn or something. Wait for reverse to engage, put in reverse, wait for it to engage, and then step on the gas for reverse. Don't put in reverse and then jam on the gas and it'll rev up, and then, you know, because it doesn't engage immediately. So keep that in mind as well. But yeah, that's about it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you found it informative on the 10R80 transmission. So let me know what you guys think in the comments, and please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.